Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari, and today we're getting into my June wrap-up. Now, before we get into everything, a couple little housekeeping things. First off, this wrap-up's not very big. I didn't read very many books in June because I did start a new job and I started going back to school full-time, so a lot less time for reading when I didn't have a job and I wasn't going to school and just reading full-time previously. Few less books probably going forward. I'm gonna try to keep up the video schedule, but if for some reason I miss out on videos, you know why. Additionally, I also got an affiliate link with Abe Books. So if you shop on Abe Books and you want to support me, then use my affiliate link down in the comments below. It'll always be found in the comments under affiliate link section. And then if I talk about books specifically in a video, I will link that particular book for sale on Abe Books if you want to buy that particular book. But if you don't want to buy any of the books, you just want to support me buying your own books, just use the generic affiliate links, which I believe is affiliates.abebooks.com/primrose. Good. A thank you for your support if you support me, or thank you for listening to me if you don't want to. That's fine. You do you. From there, let's jump into it, starting with stats. In June, I only read 11 books. Very, very small for what I normally read, but that's fun, no big deal. I read 3,812 pages, about 127 pages per day, and 347 pages per book. Out of the genres I read 4 fantasy, 3 nonfiction, 2 sci-fi, 1 thriller, and 1 horror book, 8 female authors, 3 male authors. Source: 4 of them were library books, 3 of them were ARCs, 2 of them were backlist books, and 2 of them were brand new books that I had bought recently, within the past month or so. Demographic: 10 of them were adult novels, 1 YA. As far as have I read this author before, 5 of the authors were new to me, books by authors I had never read before, and then 6 of them were authors that I had read from before. Format: 7 of them were physical books, 3 ebooks, and 1 audiobook. As far as star ratings, I had 1 5-star, which was a reread, and I had given it 5 stars the last 5 times I read it. 5 4 stars, so I enjoyed quite a few books. 4 3 stars, 1 2-star, no 1 stars, and 2 DNFs. From there, let's talk about what I actually read. The first book I read this month was Come Fly the World. Now this is nonfiction about the stewardesses of Pan Am in the 1940s to 1960s. Actually, I guess it was probably the 40s to the 80s or 90s, but it mostly focused around the time of the Vietnam War and when Pan Am was at its peak. And Pan Am had a contract with the US government where they flew a lot of the troops, usually on leave breaks and stuff like that. And this is just kind of a story based off of interviews with actual Pan Am stewardesses of the time and their lives, their careers. It deals a lot with racism and misogyny and different aspects like that. It was pretty interesting and I liked it, but it wasn't blow me out of the water, everybody needs to read this. If you're interested, I would say definitely go for it. If it sounds like something that interests you, go for it. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but if it's not something that actually interests you, you're not going to get anything really special from reading it. I guess that's all I have to say. Another nonfiction, let's just go in order of genre. Another nonfiction that I read was The Anthropocene, reviewed by John Green, I believe. He's the guy who wrote The Fault in Our Stars and all of those really popular, sad teenage books. I don't know, it was popular in the 2010s, right? So A Fault in Our Stars, Turtles All the Way Down, things like that is what he wrote. And this is an interesting thing, but it's kind of pointless. The Anthropocene is like the age we're living in. So like example is like the Jurassic age is when you think of for like dinosaurs. I mean, there's a lot of different dinosaur ages, but that's one of them. So the Anthropocene is the time of humans and technology, right? So he is taking different human things and rating them because he's very interested in the thought of like, we rate and review things. We rate and review books. You make an Amazon purchase, you rate and review that. You order something from DoorDash and you rate and review that. And we're so obsessed with like rating and reviewing things. He wants to rate and review human nature. And so they're just short little essays rating and reviewing like the most off the wall random things. That's the whole of it. If you're a big fan of John Green, sure, pick it up. If you're a big fan of like really random useless facts, go for it. You're the type of person who excels at trivia night, this is the book for you. If you're none of those things, you're gonna be like, okay, cool, and then forget about it. So this was fine. Also not something that I encourage everybody to rush out and get. The third and final nonfiction book I read was my audiobook this month, which was Broken in the Best Possible Way by, I believe, Jenny Lawson, who wrote this. Apparently she is famous for something. I don't know what she's famous for, but this is a memoir. And this is really interesting because she has a lot of chronic illnesses and disabilities. And she talks about those disabilities and illnesses in a very, very frank way. And she's hilarious. So this is her just being weird, making fun of herself, and living her best life possible in the middle of a pandemic when going outside and breathing other people's air could easily kill her because of her chronic illnesses. So it's depressing. It's the type of humor where everything's depressing and you're laughing at it. So if you like that, I definitely recommend this. I also recommend, if you haven't read this yet, pick it up in July because this is Disability Awareness Month. So perfect time for that. I recommend this as an audiobook just because Jenny Lawson has like really big Manic Pixie Dream Girl vibes to her in general, and taking her narration of her own audiobook, she narrates it herself, but taking her narration and putting it on 2x speed. So she's talking like this and blah, 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 blah. Hilarious. It just piques that humor so much more. Additionally, there's additional content in the audiobook that's not in the physical book. So there you go. Interesting fact. Highly recommend this one if you want to laugh about really depressing shit. Let's talk about the fantasies next. The dog has decided that I'm recording, knows that I'm recording, and is going to make the loudest noises possible in the background because he's an asshole. He's been quiet all day up to this point. I apologize for the noise in advance. So the first fantasy I read this month was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This has been on my bookshelf for forever, for like years and years and years. I think 2 years as of last month is when I purchased this. I heard about it all the time off of BookTube, went ahead and picked it up, never really found interest in reading it. I don't like carnivals or circuses. I don't particularly like reading about those things, and I don't think I realized that at the time that I picked this up. This isn't really about a circus or a carnival. It's kind of like a magical carnival, but the goal of it is you win a prize if you find a missing thing, and the missing thing is the main character's sister. The plot twist and then like the justification for some of the stuff in here is insane. It's very juvenile. You have to really, really like young adult to appreciate something like this, and I can see why people like this book. It's just too immature for my personal taste. The romance is stupid. most of the things in this book are kind of stupid to me, but this is for an audience. If you like young adult, like especially like 2010s young adult, but don't really love the idea of a love V or love triangle, they kind of like start to do the love triangle here, and then they're like, no, that's stupid, and back out of it. But all of the rest of the tropes are very typical. I'm glad I read this in the end. I didn't hate it. It wasn't like awfully written or anything like that. I definitely recommend it to some people who like this particular genre, like circus or carnival type things. But I don't plan to continue on in the series or anything like that. And I'm glad it's off my shelf now. I'm gonna pass this along to somebody else who's gonna like it more than I did. Next up, I read The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second Mistborn book. I'm gonna have an entire video about this out later this month, full on spoilers. Just know this is my 5-star reread. I love this series, and I'm going to be continuing to read this series 1 book a month through November when The Lost Metal comes out, which is book 4 of the Wax and Wane or Mistborn Era 2. There's not really anything I could talk about for this book in this video because it's the sequel to a like 600-page book, but just know that everything Brandon Sanderson writes is amazing, and I love the Mistborn series. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. After that, I had an arc, For the Throne by Hannah Witten, I believe. I don't have any of these authors written down. I am just coming up with them off the top of my head. This is the sequel and the second book in the duology of For the Wolf, and it follows 2 twin sisters. One is destined for the throne and one is destined to be a sacrifice to the wolf in the woods, and this follows the older of the 2 sisters who's destined for the throne. Events happened at the end of the first book, and our main character is trapped someplace she shouldn't be and has to survive it. This book, I hated everything about the plot for it, but I really liked the main character, Neve. So I ended up giving it 4 stars strictly off of vibes and her personality. So if you are a heavily plot-driven person or heavily plot-driven reader, I would definitely tell you to stay away from this series. If you are a vibes and character driven reader and you like characters who are strong sarcastic assholes, I do recommend this book for you. If you've read For the Wolf and want to know if you should continue, yes, I think so. That's pretty much all I have to say. I talked about this more in my ARC vlog, so go check that out. The last fantasy I read this month was Electra by Jennifer Saint. Now, this is basically the Iliad from the perspective of 3 women. It's not the Iliad in the fact that it's like actually following the battles and stuff of Troy, but this is like the lives of 3 women while their husbands and sons and whatever, husbands, fathers, sons are fighting in the Trojan War, right, for 10 years. So you have Electra, who is the titular character. I don't know why she's the title character of this. Well, I do, but kind of spoilery. But she's not even like the biggest part of the story. She doesn't have the most scenes, and she's the one that I liked the least, because she is got a lot of internalized misogyny. So you got that. Then you have Clytemnestra, who is Electra's mother and Agamemnon's wife. So Agamemnon is the Grecian king who was the leader of the Trojan War, if you're unfamiliar with that. His brother was married to Helen, and Paris, coming from Troy, kidnapping Helen and bringing her back to Troy was the start of the Trojan War, or the excuse for the Trojan War, basically. So you have Clytemnestra in her story, Electra in her story, and then you also have Princess Cassandra, who is a daughter of Troy. She's a daughter of the king of Troy. She's also a priestess of Apollo, and she's also been cursed. And so you have her story and her struggles with that. Overall, this was really good. I liked it better than Ariadne, because I read that too. That was Jennifer Saint's other book, so I like this one better. But it's a lot along the same vein. I think I just liked this particular storyline better than Ariadne's storyline. So if you were interested, highly recommend this. If you're not really interested in Greek mythology, you're probably not going to enjoy this because it's really just Greek mythology from a different point of view. Let's move into sci-fi. The first sci-fi I read this month was Drunk on All Your Strange New Words by Eddie Robson. And this is an arc that I had from Tor.com, I believe, and they sent it to me. I didn't request it. This is a cozy murder mystery mixed with sci-fi. So our main character is being blamed for a murder. It's a locked room murder, and she's trying to figure out what really happened before she has to go to jail for this, like, murder. But it's also sci-fi because the person she's accused of murdering is an alien, and she is a translator for this alien species. There's like ambassadors and stuff like that. She's one of the translators for the ambassador program. And the reason it's called Drunk on All Your Strange New Words is because this alien race communicates telepathically. Only certain humans can communicate in the same way, but it makes them drunk. So yeah, she spent a whole night translating, got blackout drunk, woke up the next morning, some guy's dead, and the police are blaming her for it. This is funny. Our main character is a chav, if you're familiar with that British term. She's like trailer park trash is, I guess, the American equivalent from it. But she's not very professional, and it's kinda extremely hilarious. So highly recommend if it sounds interesting to you. I enjoyed this book thoroughly. It's very good. The other sci-fi I read was a short story collection called Future Artifacts by Cameron Hurley. This was also an arc. Both of these sci-fis were arcs, so I explain them further in my arc vlog. This one, the short stories themselves weren't standout or amazing anyway, but the way Cameron Hurley writes gender is phenomenal. So if you like military sci-fi and you want something other than just like cisgendered white men, I definitely recommend pretty much anything that she's written, but she does a really cool job of doing like these futuristic wartime dystopian societies with a very misandrist outlook on life instead of misogynistic, which basically means the women are always like the soldiers, the fighters, the powerful ones, and men are weak and lowly and abused and stuff like that. So it's just, it's like obviously wrong. It's not saying that we want these misandrous societies. It's just a twist on like misogyny that we often see in dystopian societies. So highly recommend if that is your thing. I do think that the Light Brigade is better than Future Artifacts, so I definitely recommend that one more. But if you want like a lot of short stories, this is definitely the way to go. Next up, my thriller for the month, which was In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I don't remember who it's by. This is one of the thrillers I see talked about all the time on BookTube and Book Talk. So I was like, okay, I don't like domestic thrillers, but I'm gonna give this a shot. Maybe I'll enjoy it. It was okay. It isn't a domestic thriller. This is like a group of school kids who, well, I guess they're a group of adults, but they were best friends in college, and during their junior year of college, one of their friends dies and another one of their friends is blamed for her death, but he's later acquitted because there's not enough proof. 10 years later, they go back for a college reunion, and Basically the story is going through like their lives in college and trying to figure out who actually killed her, because one of them killed her. That's basically it. You follow one girl's perspective. It's awful. I hated everything about her. So again, if you're a very character-driven person, and you don't like her particular character, which is what my problem was with the book, you're not gonna like the book. She's very power-driven, I guess. Like, she wants to be in charge, in power. She wants to be liked and respected. She wants people to be envious of her. And that's like her entire personality, and that is the furthest thing from my personality, like, humanly possible. So I had a lot of issues, like, empathizing, sympathizing with this character, and she's not a person that I would like in real life, basically. So struggled with that. The plot, meh. I guess there's some uncomfortable queer baiting in here, but I think it was meant to be that way, if that makes sense. But yeah, I didn't like it, but I could see if you're a thriller person and really, really like thrillers, you'll probably like this. The red herring was very good. That's all I can say. And then finally, my horror that I read this month, which was Hide by Kristen White. A bunch of people have been talking about this. There's polarizing reactions. Some people really love this and some people really hate it. I've read another book by Kristen White that I did not like at all. And this was kind of like my, do I hate her writing or was it just that book? And I think I hate her writing. I just don't think I like anything by her. The other book that I read was fantasy. It was like the Guinevere Deception, I think is what it was called, but fantasy King Arthur retelling. This is a horror story set based in the real world. So basically what this is a contest in a abandoned theme park where 12 people are left in this theme park for, I believe, a week, and maybe 14 people are left in this theme park for a week, and they have to play hide and seek, and basically 2 of them are found every day, and if you aren't one of those 2 people, once that's up, you go back to like base camp for the night, and then the next morning you have to go hide again, right? So the main character has some like previous life trauma that makes her really, really good at playing hide and seek. And she's like homeless, living in a shelter, so she decides to take part in this, right? That sounds like an interesting plot. Where this shit actually goes, it's so stupid. If you want like camp in your horror, you might like this, because there's some campy weird shit in this book. It was just like one of those super complicated plot lines that you're like, this is beyond ridiculous. I think this was my 2-star for the month, because I really did not like this. I ended up finishing it just because it's super short, but this was so stupid. I'm gonna put a spoiler warning here because it's potentially spoilery if you're familiar with the movie that I'm about to talk about. But this gave me really big Cabin in the Wood vibes with like the off the wall. It wasn't the same plot twist, but that like off the wall, like second act type thing. That's this book. Fucking weird. I had 2 DNFs this month. First off was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. I had started reading this because it won Goodreads choice in its category. I DNF'd this very quickly because I hate Sally Rooney's writing. I'd never read a book by her. None of them really ever sounded interesting, but this confirms that I had made the right choice in not reading anything by her. I can't stand her writing, and I wasn't gonna do that to myself. So DNF this one. I wasn't really interested in the first place. Moving on with my life. The other thing I DNF'd was Redemptor by Jordan Ifueko. Now, this one is a very me thing, and I definitely recommend this to some people. This is the sequel to Raybearer, and basically the problem with this book is I couldn't suspend my disbelief. This country is ruled by a group of children. And these children acting like all-powerful, and I mean like pre-teenage children, pre-teenage children. These children acting like all-powerful, and like all-knowing, like they're the best rulers. They are treated like they know more than like a full-grown adult because they have some sort of magical powers, and like they're having sex and relationships, and it just made me very uncomfortable because I'm so much older than the characters in this book, and it was just, if I could have ignored their ages, like sometimes they'll like mention an age at the beginning of the book and then never say anything about it again, and that one I could just like age up the characters in my mind and I can get through the book. This one talks about the characters' ages over and over and over again, and it keeps reiterating that these are children. And because of that, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I went ahead and DNF'd this. I do recommend Raybearer. I really, really liked Raybearer. That one, it's not children leading in Raybearer, and there's not like a whole lot of sexual content or sexualizing children, so it was much easier for me to get behind, but I really like Jordan Ifueko's writing, so highly recommend. This one was just a personal issue with it. That's it. Those are all the books that I've read in June. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite or least favorite book was from June. And then if you didn't read anything, don't have a favorite or least favorite, you want to leave me an emoji, leave me, again, some type of pride emoji. Just because June's over doesn't necessarily mean that we forget about queer people. So please leave me a pride emoji down in the comments below. I will see you in the next video, which is going to be a book haul. Bye.